Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to this week's Into the Wilderness Shorts. I am your host, Byron Pace. It is the 9th of April, 2020. Most of you will still be in some sort of lockdown around the world. We are all facing our own challenges as we navigate this new paradigm and what the world will look like once we come out the other side. So I wanted to bring some optimism in today's show and focus on the way communities have come together to support one another. Our podcast partners, Modern Huntsman, are doing just that. So I caught up with friend and editor-in-chief, Tyler Sharp, to talk about two incredible initiatives the team have created. Tyler Sharp, welcome back onto the show. We're in the same country, but not in the same state, and we're both pretty much confined to our houses.
We are, yes, both in the Western United States, but closer than normal, so that's nice.
Yeah, how's the last couple of weeks been for you? I know prior to that, it was hard to pin you down because you were flying all over the world, gathering material for the next issue of Modern Huntsman. You and I were together in Texas at the Dallas Safari Club convention where Modern Huntsman had a presence, and you and I both were giving speeches. It was a whirlwind start to the year, and everything was going full speed ahead, and then all of a sudden it ground to a halt.
Yeah, it was a 3-month stint. I left, sometime early November, and didn't get home until early February. So yeah, it was great. A lot of, obviously a combination of photography, writing, panel discussions that we had, a lot of great meetings with brands and organizations and world leaders. I mean, you and I met several prime ministers from Africa, and then got home, and it all kind of hit me at once. And so I spent it was hard to catch up on everything. And then obviously now with this global pandemic, everyone's been kind of forced to slow down. And so I guess I don't want to say it's a blessing, but certainly a silver lining of this situation is that it's allowed me to sort of catch up and kind of reevaluate and process some of the things that have happened towards the end of the year, and do our best to think of a way forward.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about two very exciting initiatives that are being fronted by Modern Huntsman and the team. But before I ask you about those, Modern Huntsman Volume 5, the pre-orders for that are currently open. Just give people an idea, if they haven't dug into what the next issue is going to be about the kind of content that's going to be in there, and what they can expect from it.
Sure. So yeah, the fifth volume is more or less called Traditions, and it's based on, in a formal sense, hunts based on cultural traditions, right? So some almost tribal stuff. We've got Russian reindeer herders, and Norwegian whale hunting, and Icelandic puffin harvesting, all kinds of stuff. And then taking that word into a larger context, that there's a tradition of whitetail hunting in the Midwestern United States, or quail hunting in the Southeast, or things, rituals and ceremonies and little superstitions and pieces of clothing or hunting items that are used all over the world. And it's something that is definitely taking a little more of an anthropological approach, which is really exciting. Interesting timing, given that the approach of this issue is so much more international. And then having this sort of global shutdown of travel has been interesting. We've had several photographers get stranded in other countries. We've had some not able to go. And it's been interesting kind of speaking with people all over the world and figuring out how everyone's handling with it and what the difference in situations. And, we've got Danny Christensen there in the north of Italy during kind of where it's all started. And it's pretty intense for him, but, he's safe and healthy and working on the images from Hungary and Transylvania when we were there in November. And yeah, so it's obviously we're rolling with the punches and addressing this altered global situation as best as we can. But I think that it's appropriate timing for this issue because it's based on a little more cultural, anthropological, inspirational stories, which I think is what people will appreciate, rather than some of the more complex, nuanced discussions and whatever you want to call them, conservation controversies. So I think it's good that we're having a little bit more of a artistic conversation with this one.
Yeah, it's amazing how the last couple of weeks have really brought it home with the challenge of this normal day-to-day challenge of putting together a volume of Modern Huntsman. And like you were saying, we had two writers who are contributing to this next issue who flew out to New Zealand and then had to, after a few days, realize that they needed to get back to the States, otherwise they might not be able to get home. And then I don't even know if they got back. Do you know if they got home?
No, they didn't. They're stranded.
They're still there.
They're stuck there for another 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, but they're in good spirits, so that's nice.
Apparently I can still get home. I need to work that out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll forgive. They'll give you a
free
situational green card.
So let's talk about these two initiatives, which are going to be launched. Well, I think the plan is that they're going to be launched as we release this podcast.
Yes.
So there's two very, very different elements to this, but all related to this current crisis that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's no surprise that our business has been affected by this, as it has for people all over the world. I mean, sales just plummeted, and apart from trying to figure out as a business, how do we move through this, but also given that, there's an innate human desire to want to help in some way. And so we've been brainstorming and trying to think of ways that we could address the situation, especially with some of the freelancers who've lost their jobs, some of which for an entire year. And, and people who their work is based on travel, they can't go anywhere. And so our good friends at Mystery Ranch, who we've worked with the past few issues, and I'm sure we're going to have on the podcast in a longer conversation soon, they've launched a mask making initiative using their facility here in Bozeman, Montana. I think they've produced like 7,000 masks supporting medical workers here in the Bozeman area, and specifically to Bozeman because they're based here, but also because this is just part of their community and they were trying to step up. So as of today, all sales, 10% of everything, books, prints, shirts, hats, any of the products we're rolling out, 10% of that is going to go to this, we're calling it Mission for Masks, and basically to help Mystery Ranch continue to produce supplies for medical workers here. Obviously, they have plans to try to expand that mission beyond just the state of Montana because they have the facilities and they have the relationships with producers to do that. As of right now, though, it's just based here in Montana until we can scale that up. And then the other component of this is we're calling it the Freelancer Fund. And, based on our conversations, Byron, with photographers and writers all over the world who've, kind of been sidelined and inability to do work, we're going to take 10%, an additional 10% of all of our sales and put it into this Freelancer Fund with the hope that we can raise enough money to create this sort of grant where, and the details of it we're working out in terms of how people will submit to it and how we're going to select who is available or eligible for these grants. But basically we would commission photographers and writers for assignments, and whether that may not involve travel right now, maybe it's working from home, going through archives, compiling perspectives, but just doing what we can to get people work, right? And to do showcase more artists, and we've been featuring more people on Instagram and on our website, and just do what we can in the downtime to support the independent artists that we've worked with and kind of built this whole business on. So, yeah,
it's really been brought home to me the last couple of weeks how fragile and precarious it is as a freelancer. I mean, in terms of the work that I do personally, I do a lot of different aspects. So I've been lucky that in the last few weeks, we've been working on the next volume of Modern Huntsman. So I've been finishing contributions for it and doing editing in the background from other people's submissions. But aside from that, I'm normally making films. I'm normally doing photography. That side of it has completely shut down. And I've got a number of friends, as do you, around the world who are world-class photographers, and they have no work. And all of their work almost to the end of the year has now either been cancelled or postponed. And that's frightening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard enough to be a freelancer in general, right? With the amount of competition and the just homogenization of rates and digital content being on people's iPhones and all that kind of stuff, let alone the inability to actually go anywhere and do it. And I think some of that's driven by practicality, right? And obviously stopping the spread of the virus, but there's an element of it too with people canceling stuff for the rest of the year. I don't think that's necessary, but as a freelancer, there's not really much you can say about that. And everybody's kind of got to go back to the drawing board and figure out what a post-pandemic market looks like, and how do you get your name back out there, or how do you keep the momentum going? And so I don't know. That's just we're still figuring it out day by day, but we want to do what we can to help that. And at the very least, I hope this goes really well and we're able to raise a lot of money and help a lot of people. At the very least, we can be promoting their work through our channels and drawing attention to what they do. And hopefully our larger, that resonates with our larger audience, and people want to step up and help them. So
yeah, I think this is it's a perfect time right now to join together and help one another to raise the profiles of other creatives who you admire. And not be afraid. I think sometimes we can be guilty of viewing everyone else who does similar kind of work as competition. And I think that right now is the perfect opportunity for us to hold our hands together and say, look how great these people are. And take the time while we're sitting in our houses to raise each other's profiles.
Yeah. Well, and Byron, you and I are in a fortunate position, right? Where we've spent a lot of time working hard in our careers and have built up to a point where, we have some credibility, maybe questionable credibility, but platforms, right? And you think about it from the other end of the spectrum, when we were just starting off and we were younger freelancers, just trying to catch a break or get a job, and somebody like, I don't want to say like Modern Huntsman, but if somebody stood up for us and promoted our work and helped raise awareness about what we were doing, it would be super appreciated. So a lot of that's coming from knowing what I would have valued and appreciated back in the day when I was trying to make a name or just get recognized or get a chance, and let alone the increased obstacles with what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, it's probably worth pointing out as part of a backstory, and we might have talked about this before on one of the occasions that you've been on the podcast, but you're launching this now to help support creatives and freelancers because of the issues that we're all facing globally. But at the very core of Modern Huntsman, it has always been the case that you've wanted to focus on making sure that it's fair and that people are compensated for the input and the hard work that it really takes to create great imagery, to write great stories. And you and I think, have had similar experiences in different parts of the world when it comes to particularly print publication, where you're really not rewarded for good work.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things, we probably talked about it on another podcast before, but you and I both worked for a lot of different publications over the years, and some of them are more enjoyable than others. But it's like you create this memory bank of experiences and remembering what you liked and what you didn't like. And we tried to structure Modern Huntsman to be the best sort of patchwork of what, try to be what the other things were not, right? And try to do things a little bit differently. And while I wish we could pay a lot more than we do, we are a young company with limited resources, but to compensate for that, we do things like give contributors a percentage of sales, right? And make sure that they are promoted through our channels and have, a dedicated bio on our website that shows people their Instagram handle and their website and some of their portfolio and things like that. So it's just in that way, it becomes a little more, they're part of the team, right? And they feel a little more ownership, like they have skin in the game, rather than just like, okay, thank you, bye. And we can't do that with everyone, right? But that's something that we want to expand. But that's been part of the philosophy from the beginning, was to try to create something that favors the contributor and uplifts them and gives them proper credit, and a sense of belonging, even in some cases, a sense of family, right? We have a lot of, I mean, you and I at this point, we're basically like brothers, and we fight like brothers.
Yeah. Thankfully.
Just kidding. You don't fight with your brother. So yeah, I think that this is a continuation of our mission, and in a time when we're really looking inwardly about who we are and what we want to do and where we want to go. This is something that is very clear that it's always been a mission to help lift up young, talented, or maybe not young, but right, just people deserving of recognition and further exposure. And we just see this as an opportunity to continue that mission and go beyond that in a time of need and do something meaningful and hopefully impactful on a larger scale.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be viewed with thanks from freelancers around the world, and I wouldn't be surprised if you almost can't cope with the number of applications that you get for support, because we all know that people are struggling. And hat off to Modern Huntsman to acknowledging this fact. If people want to read more about these two initiatives, where can they find all of the information?
Yeah, so we just put up a page on our site. It's the mission page. So if you go to modernhuntsman.com, there'll be something on the home page, but on the navigation, it'll say mission. And it'll just have a little more information. I wrote an open letter and a little more information on how we're supporting the mask making, and then a little more about this Freelancer Fund. And while we certainly haven't opened up submissions yet, just keep your eyes open. We're going to be rolling out products. We're rolling out a fine art print shop that we're going to talk more about soon with Tito West, who built it for us. And hopefully, right, before we open up submissions, we need to actually raise some money into that fund. So we're going to have kind of a project page there with updates and progress. And, we're hoping that gains some momentum and that people see this as a worthy cause, and that we get some support there and get some money in there for masks and for freelancers.
You're going to be doing a bit more social media in the coming weeks and doing some live Q&As and that kind of thing. So where can people find Modern Huntsman on social if they want to engage in that way? Sure.
Yeah, it's at Modern Huntsman. While we haven't necessarily scheduled this stuff, my team's been bugging me for years to be on camera more and kind of introduce myself and just more of the team, right? Because we've all been working so hard on this thing, but we don't always step into the light. And I think we want to peel the curtain back a little bit and just be a little more honest and a little more available. So we're going to be doing, some Instagram stories, some Instagram live videos, Q&As, interviews with some of the photographers and artists we've been working with on some of these products we're going to roll out. And so, yeah, I think that checking on our Instagram and Facebook, which is also at Modern Huntsman, is the best way. But we're going to have a lot coming out here in the next few weeks, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, that is exciting. And we're going to be featuring more writers and photographers and filmmakers on the podcast as well. I mean, we have done historically. We've had a lot of people who have contributed to past issues of Modern Huntsman on the show, which has been great. And an upcoming one, which I am so excited to release to everyone, is an amazing conversation that I had with Ryan Youngblood, who contributed, I think it was to Volume 2. But,
Volume 2.
Okay, and a couple of, at least one of his films is also on the Modern Huntsman website.
Mm-hmm. Him and Tito West, who y'all will all meet soon as the mastermind behind our fine art print shop. But yeah, I like to call Ryan Youngblood the dark horse of Modern Huntsman, because that piece he wrote about, was it the Congo?
It was actually Central African Republic.
Okay, CAR. So was one of my favorites.
Blew me away.
So beautiful. And he's so humble and unassuming, and he thinks he has nothing interesting to say, which could not be farther from the truth.
After almost 2 hours of speaking to him on the podcast, I can confirm that he has a lot of interesting things to say. And that article that you're referring to was so impactful to me that I can even tell you where I read that, because I read that on the plane flying back from the States. And I don't know why I remember that, but I remember that that's where I consumed that article.
Oh man, he's a talent for sure, and we're hoping to work with him more this year, especially with his expertise in Africa, and with some of this print shop stuff, we're going to be doing some interesting editorial crossover with special projects, and themed image sets and things like that. So definitely more to come.
Lots of exciting stuff. Tyler, thanks for jumping on a call with me today. I can't wait for all this to roll out, and I'm looking forward to bringing Volume 5 to the world as well, as this glimmer of light in very dark times. And I hope that we can all come out of this in one piece. And I look forward to being able to see you in person again.
I know. We had plans to do a press check together in Los Angeles, and then I was going to take you to Disneyland for your first trip, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
None at the moment. No, I think that's all firmly shut down for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but the Americanization of Byron.
But we're going to keep optimistic, and I think what you're doing with Modern Huntsman, with the rollout of these initiatives, is going to bring a light in many people's days. So, congrats to you and the team.
So. Thanks, Byron. Thanks for having me.
I couldn't think of a better way to bring this show to a close than asking Tyler to read his open letter for all of you. So here he is, from his cabin in Montana. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Dear friends, family, and distinguished supporters, I truly hope you and your loved ones are as well as you can be despite the circumstances. I'm writing to you from isolation in rural Montana, and while I've sat down many times in the last few days to pen this letter, I failed to find the words to write or the path to take. Like so many across the world, our business has been affected by this pandemic, and I've spent the week trying to keep morale up amongst the team, to be encouraging and cultivate a sense of hope, because I feel like that's what all of us need right now. In the words of G.K. Chesterton, hope is the power of being cheerful in circumstances that we know to be desperate. These are strange times indeed, but nothing that our dynamic human spirits can't endure. We have to keep the inner flame lit and forge ahead, so hang in there. Modern Huntsman has always strove to be a source of inspiration, and we're going to do our best to remind you of the beauty, majesty, and adventure that still exists in the world. And while we may not be able to enjoy it as fully right now, we can still journey there together through stories, photographs, and films. Beyond that, I've struggled with ways that we can do more to help this situation, being that we're a small company with limited resources. Well, we found an answer, and those two initiatives start today. Until this crisis abates, we will be donating 10% of all sales to support the efforts of our friends at Mystery Ranch in the production of masks for medical workers in Montana, and an additional 10% of sales will go towards putting freelance photographers and writers back to work, many of whom have lost their jobs for the entire year. We're trying to step up in a time of need, and while we wish that we could do more, this seems like an appropriate measure to support the collaborators and artists who have helped us build this community. We're going to be rolling out several new products, stories, interviews, and live Q&As in the coming weeks, and we hope that they brighten your day and your homes. Our team has worked really hard on them, and we're thrilled to share. But we need your help. We can't do this without you. So I'm humbly asking for your continued support as we get this off the ground and attempt to do something meaningful and impactful. Help us provide medical workers with masks, help us support freelancers out of work, and help us weather the storm so that we can continue to produce inspiring, independent media and grow this initiative into something much larger. With the deepest sense of gratitude and humility that I have, I thank you for all of the support so far and for the consideration as we move forward in this mission. We're in this together, so keep hope alive until we make it to the other side, where I feel that life will be all the sweeter. See you in the fields.